All right. Week of February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. Market of the moment update. Michael Oldham, Chris Madrid. How you doing today, Mr. Madrid?
So good.
So good. So good. Me too. Another lovely day in Dallas. It seems like every time we plan a report, some crazy weather gets to come through. So
It looks, man, it's sunny and 75. I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah. 75 yesterday, 40 today. Feels like about 25, I think.
No doubt.
Well, let's get to the market of the moment for this week. Let's first start off with our interest rates. We know they've been ticking up. We've been talking about the opportunity of it. I know they made some announcements this week as well. Saw you posted something, so take it away on what's going on.
Man, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's a constant. It's constantly changing, right? I mean, interest rates pretty much all week had been headed upward, and then the Fed came out this morning and dropped a couple nuggets, and like thankfully we had a little bit of a pullback today. So as of yesterday, we were pushing 4.25, I think, on a 30-year fixed, and then we've come down a hair, 4.1 today. So man, the consensus and what I'm seeing, hearing, reading, these are the new levels, if not higher, right? So just from just an overall, hey, I'm going to wait a year, I'm going to wait 6 months for home prices and rates to come down. You're going to be waiting longer than that, right? Because it's just there's no there's no flattening out. There's no this whole talk of a bubble, which we'll get into in a little bit. That's not where we're at. So mortgage rates are still in the low, as of right now, we're low fours, right? But I think between now and the end of the year, we may be mid fours to high fours. I don't know if we'll get to 5%, but mid fours to high fours are where I'm kind of projecting rates to be towards the end of the year. So obviously, if you have an opportunity to get in now while they're in the low fours, get after it, right? So that's from from an overall trends perspective, that's where I see the market going.
Okay. Well, we were talking a little bit earlier about there's still constantly this buzz of a housing bubble and a crash, and we talk about where you get your news and all of those types of things. So let's talk a little bit about those numbers. And
man, it's simply I mean, it really comes down to just supply and demand, right? Like we saw over the last couple of years, with the start of COVID in 2020, obviously everything pretty much came to a halt from a production perspective, right? That's where we're hearing about about microchips and windows on new homes and refrigerators and washers and dryers and essentially everything that has to do with things that we use every single day, right? Those things weren't getting built in 2020. Well, now those things they are being built, right? But just like there was a slowdown in production, well, the slowdown in production then made it to the cargo ships for things that are being built across the world, right, on the other side of the ocean. So things are now being built, but then you now have these ships and boats that are now stuck off the ports of California, right? Because there's not enough people to essentially unload those ships. And then even if they're now, it sounds like there's now people to unload the cargo from the ships, but now there's not enough truck drivers to then take those items from point A to point B, which ultimately gets to our doorsteps, right? So we can kind of just see over the last couple of years how these essentially the stop in production of building these different things has now trickled down to the fact that they're really hard to get if you can get them at all, or two, it's a lot more expensive. So similar to housing, back in 2020, builders were only selling a couple homes per month, right, versus their normal 5 to 10, because there was plenty of labor to be able to build these things, build the homes and all that kind of stuff. Well, now it's labor shortages. It's, obviously, lumber prices going up and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a trickle effect. I really think from a housing perspective, we're still, the shortage from the last couple of years with builders not building as many homes as they had in the past. man, we're 3 to 5 years behind, right? From just an overall
Yeah.
production perspective. So, um, will home prices go down next year? Heck no. Will they go down the following year? No. Will they in 10 years? I don't know if they're going to go down. They'll probably flatten out, right? But they're definitely not going down. So the other thing too is DFW is, I think, number one, or has been number one over the last 3 years with people moving to the area, right? So those are again, those aren't things that that we made up. Those are actual statistics that have that have been pulled up for DFW is number one in employment, essentially, right? So people are moving to Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, right, for work because they were in a state that completely shut down, right? And obviously you can't pay your bills and keep groceries on the table and all that stuff if you're not working, right? So demand is not going to slow down anytime soon. There's no, we don't have any state income taxes in the state of Texas, so it's very affordable, affordable for people to move here and live here. And at the end of the day, we think home prices and interest rates are high at the levels that they are now, when in reality they've been low for so long, right? Looking at numbers this morning, I think the 30-year average of mortgage rates is 6%. The 50-year average is 8%, right? So if you look at mortgage rates over the last 50 years, 8% is the is that that 50-year average, and we're sitting in the low fours, right? So we're at half of what they were. Again, with the expectation, I would imagine over the next 5 years, we'll probably get back up to that 5 to 6 range, and probably stay there for a little bit. So anyway, if you have an opportunity to be able to purchase, buy, invest in real estate, get after it, right?
Yeah.
Do it now.
That's definitely the story. We're telling our buyers, it seems like maybe they're having to overpay, but when you calculate probably anywhere from 10 to 15% value going up each of the next couple of years, and then probably 7 to 10 the years after that, it's not going to be long that they've obviously made that money back in equity.
No.
So
Right.
as Chris is saying, the story is, if you're in the market to buy, don't be waiting. It's just going to be more expensive, less affordable.
Yeah.
So,
We're talking the other day too, and I think each of us have, we can remember the conversation where we were talking to a customer last year, right? That was looking to purchase a home, and they didn't want to spend, $500,000 on that house last year. Well, unfortunately, that same house this year is now $700,000. So that year wait has now cost $200,000 more, and then obviously not taking into account the increase in mortgage rates. So
yeah, we've talked about it before. You basically might not be able to buy in the same neighborhoods this year that you wanted to last year, and it's just going to be the same story next year.
Next year, yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, let's move on to our real estate trends. They seem to be trending about the same as we've talked. As far as the market goes, we really have nowhere to move off of these numbers too much. So everything is basically the same in our surrounding counties. I will say the comps I've ran this last couple of weeks, McKinney, Allen, you're still seeing anywhere from an average of 6% over list to an outlier of a 13 to an 18% over list. Was talking earlier, I had clients, lose out on a house that was listed at 450 and it sold for 600 plus.
Yeah.
You were telling a story earlier where a seller came home to a cashier's check on their front door for a tremendous amount. So the market's crazy. People do lots of things to get a home right now, and it kind of goes to what we were talking about earlier. It's basically supply and demand.
Yeah, absolutely.
And supply is not catching up with demand for several years here in our market. So
yeah, I think the biggest component is if you're going to finance, right, if you're going to purchase a home and you're going to look for the bank or mortgage company to finance a good portion of that total price, man, you need to be ready to go, right? And when you're making offers, you need to be able to submit an offer with as little contingencies as possible,
Yeah.
So,
No.
so again, yeah, essentially yeah, no contingencies, and working with, working with a trusted, real estate professional like you guys, and obviously a lender like us, you have to be able to trust the people that you're working with, at the end of the day. So,
And that's what we're getting ready to get into right now. Basically, looks like this infographic I based around the Super Bowl, so that must have been recently. Uh, how to win as a buyer in a seller's market. I wanted to talk about this real quick because it is still possible to win offers. I'm not going to lie, it is tough working with buyers right now. They're putting their best foot forward on every offer, and sometimes just it doesn't seem like it's enough, and it's always just the money. So, but I wanted to talk real quick about how you should go about winning in this seller's market. And as Chris was talking about, the first thing is you got to build your team, and you got to surround yourself with knowledgeable lenders and a knowledgeable real estate agent. And then we both have people outside of our team that we're partnered with to help us. Amy and I, it's inspectors, roofers, and different things of that nature. So once you build your team and you get that trusted professionals around you, the next thing is you're going to sit down and make strategic plays. You're going to lay out the budget. You're going to know, you need to know going into this market, how much reserves you have, and if you can afford to waive the appraisal, because if you don't, you're probably not going to get your offer looked at in this market. So you got to make sure you have the funds to cover such things. That might mean that your down payment's not 20%, it gets to 3 to 3.5%. But you need to also think about your wish list. Prioritize exactly what you want and need. In this market,
right.
Even in new construction, you can't pick exactly what you want. The builders in this market have already laid out what's going to be in the home, and you're basically going to have to agree to that, almost down to even the lots. They know what lots their homes are going on and everything. And they're having to do that to keep homes affordable, to make sure they're not even more expensive. They're having to streamline their processes, buy things in bulk. You were talking about the housing shortage, and one indicator it's not ending anytime soon is I'm working with a buyer that wanted to get a 1.5 story under construction, and the builder is not building any 2 stories because there is a second floor joist shortage. So they can't get joists to put a second floor in.
Gosh,
So
that's crazy.
I think a month ago, all the 2 stories they had on plan went to 1 stories. And they're not even projecting that to change for 6 months. So this particular buyer, if they want the 1.5 story version, they have to wait 6 months, and then it possibly won't even be available then. So the next thing is consider what's in and out of bounds. You need to figure out if you want to stay in the same area or you can branch out into new communities. Often buyers right now start in one area and they find they have to maybe expand that search out a little bit. I did some comps in Allen last weekend, and if you wanted to buy a home between 400 and 500,000 in Allen, you had 2 choices. So that, but my buyers basically were forced out of McKinney because in that same price range, there might have been 1 house, if even that. So you need to make a list of neighborhoods that you would like to live in, and then you might have a secondary list of places that you could look for a secondary. And then you got to be ready for competition, because as we've talked about supply and demand, there's a ton more foot traffic out there than there is places to walk. So the first steps, get pre-approved. And Chris and I have talked about this the last couple of weeks. You don't need to just be pre-approved. You need to be completely through the underwriting process so that your agent can put down 0 days on financing. That makes you more like a cash offer. And Chris starts that process from the get-go. As long as you're getting him the documents he needs and such, he's going to get you through underwriting and get you a letter so that us, your agents, can put 0 days financing contingency, and that removes one more obstacle a seller might have to not take your offer.
Yeah.
So in
Yeah.
MLS,
On that same note, right? Guys, it's much better and a whole lot easier to discuss and go over and game plan situations up front, right? Whether that's, oh gosh, I can throw out numerous things: child support, I own another property, I have accounts that aren't reporting to credit. Like, this stuff will come up, right? And it's always better if we have the conversation and we game plan up front versus when when we're 2 weeks in and then we find out, oh, there's a property that you didn't disclose, and now we have to include taxes and insurance. Or there was, now that I see child support or something on a pay stub that wasn't on the one before, and you've never talked to us about it, right? Like, this stuff, I promise you, will come up, and it's better that it comes up front so that we're prepared and ready and can navigate, versus 2 or 3 weeks down the road, and it's a huge surprise for everybody, right? So I cannot stress enough, you need to be upfront, share everything that you have. I mean, it's so funny. There was a commentary that I heard. I mean, this is like one of those medical procedures where where you can't hide anything, right? Like, essentially, that will hinder your ability to close on the home and could cost you thousands of dollars, right? Whenever you go under contract, I mean, you're putting up, on a $500,000 house, you're putting $5,000 to $10,000 up in earnest money. You're paying $800 for an appraisal. You're paying $500 to $600 for an inspection. And if something comes up that you didn't disclose up front, you can lose all of that, right? If you have to cancel the contract. And it's not anything that obviously you guys or us, we want to put anyone down the path. So it's just, again, be as upfront and transparent as possible, and it helps everyone.
Makes everybody's and your life easier. So, and then that last thing is being ready for competition. Lean on that team that you put together, lean on their expertise. I know Chris knows how to navigate the lending side. Amy and I know how to put together an offer that can put you in competition to win. And if you'll do those things, then you put yourself in the best position. There's definitely never any guarantees in real estate, but I just always tell my client, you got to put your best foot forward, and know that you did your best. I always base success on doing your best at the moment and what you can do. And so if you put your best foot forward with an offer and that's all you can do, and you still don't win it, you did what you can do. So as Chris and I always say, there's a ton of real estate news out there. Reach out to us. Obviously, we stay on top of the market every day. If you need comps ran, as a buyer, I'm running them every way to Sunday to try to figure out where you need to be, and things of that nature. And I know Chris is doing the same thing with interest rates. So here's our info. Reach out. We'll be more than happy to walk you through this process, and we'd love to be your team through this. All right, brother man. Have a good week.